Hello and welcome to this video tutorial, and in this lesson we're going to be looking at long multiplication. Now before you go any further, it is advised that you take a look at the short multiplication video before watching this one. If you're already confident with short multiplication, no problem, let's keep going, okay? Alright, so what is long multiplication? It's when we multiply a number which has more than one digit by another number which has more than one digit. So in this case, we've got a 3-digit number multiplied by a 2-digit number. And to solve this, it's very similar to solving a short multiplication problem, but it does have a big difference that we need to be aware of. Okay, so to set it out using the column method, I'm first going to write the largest number, so 243. Okay, so I've got my 200s, my 4 10s, and my 3 1s. Then underneath that, I'm going to write the number I'm multiplying by. So in this case, 25, which is 2 10s and 5 1s. Okay, right. Final thing I need to do is put my solution line underneath and the multiplication symbol. And now let's get solving. So just like the short multiplication method, what we're going to do is grab our 1s here, so the number 5, and multiply it by every single number above it. So the 2, the 4, and the 3. But we're going to start on the right hand side. So we're going to do 5 multiplied by 3 to begin with. So what is 5 times 3? It's 15. Now the second digit of 15, the 5, goes underneath. And the first digit gets carried over to the column on the left. So the 1 gets carried over to the column on the left. Okay, now we're going to multiply 5 by the next number, which is 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. Add the 1 that we carried over would be 21. Okay, so the answer is 21. What I'm going to do is write the second digit, the 1, underneath that column, and carry the first digit, the 2, over to the next column. And finally, the question I need to answer now is 5 multiplied by 2, add the 2 that we carried over. So 5 times 2 is 10, add the 2 that we carried over is 12. Okay, so the second digit goes underneath, the first digit gets carried over, but we have multiplied all of the numbers at the top. There's nothing left to do, so that 1 is just going to fall down into this position. Okay, so now I mentioned earlier that when we're solving long multiplication, it's very, very similar to short multiplication, but now here comes the difference. Here we're going to multiply the 2, which is a 10, so 20, by all of the numbers above it, just like we did with the 5. But before we do that, we're going to put a placeholder 0 in the 1s column. Now the reason we do that is because this number here, 2, multiplied by this number 3, 2 times 3 is actually 20 times 3. So that 0 I've put in the 1s column is representing my 0 1s in 20. Okay, and now you'll be relieved to know that everything goes back to the way it was. So we're going to get number 2 and multiply it by 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. Put it in the next available column. 2 times 4 is 8. Put that in the next available column. And 2 times 2 is 4. Put that in the next available column. Okay, now that I've got my 2 answers, I'm going to form another line underneath, and I'm going to combine my 2 answers. I'm going to add them together, because what I've done is I've done 243 multiplied by 5 and 243 multiplied by 20. So now I'm going to get the sum of those two and add them together, and we are left with the answer. Okay, so let's add the 1s first. We've got 5 plus 0, which is 5. 1 plus 6, which is 7. 2 plus 8, which is 10. So the second digit goes underneath, the 1 gets carried over. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. Add the 1 that we carried over is 6. And there's my answer. My answer is 6,075. Okay, let's do another one. So 351 multiplied by 19. So once again, I'm going to start off by writing the larger number at the top. So 3 hundreds, 5 10s, 1 1s, and underneath my smaller number, which is 1 10 and 9 1s. Okay, here's my line and the multiplication symbol. Now let's get solving. So 9 multiplied by 1 is 9. 9 multiplied by 5 is 45. So the second digit goes underneath and the first digit gets carried over. 9 multiplied by 3 is 27. Add the one that I carried over, so the 4 that I carried over. So 27 plus 4 is 31. So 1 goes underneath, 3 gets carried over, but there's no more maths to do at the top there. So that 3 is just going to go into that column. Okay. Now, remember, before we multiply this number by 351, I need to put my placeholder 0 in the ones column. And now I'm going to go ahead and do it. Okay, so 1 multiplied by 1 is 1. 1 multiplied by 5 is 5. 1 multiplied by 3 is 3. And finally, I need to combine my two answers. Okay, so I've got 9 and 0. Let's add them together. 9 plus 0 is 9. 5 plus 1 is 6. 1 plus 5 is 6. And 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, here's my answer, 6,669. Now, one thing I would recommend, and I'm going to do it in front of you, is when you are practicing this for the first time, make sure you have a calculator to hand. And then once you've solved it and you're happy with your answer, put the question into the calculator to see if you're correct. So in my calculator, I'm going to write 351 multiplied by 19. And I can see, it might be backwards, I do apologise, the number's backwards, but I can see I'm correct. 6,669. Now, if I wasn't correct, what I would then do is take a look at my working out, see if I can figure out where I've gone wrong, go back to the beginning and try again. And that might seem quite tedious, and it might seem it takes a while to do that sort of thing when you're first practicing, but the more we do that and the more we practice getting it right, the quicker we'll learn this and we won't make those mistakes anymore. So it's definitely worth always checking your answers when you're practicing this. Okay. So what we're going to do now is take a look at how this question can be presented as a word problem. So the word problem says this: a nationwide choir event is attended by 12 different schools, with each school bringing 125 students. How many students are there altogether? Okay, so to calculate how many students there are altogether, we are told that there are 125 students coming from 12 different schools. So 12 lots of schools are bringing 125 students. Okay, so this question is asking us to multiply 125 students by 12 schools. And once we've established that in our head, once we understand the context of the question and what it is we're being asked to do, we're just going to go ahead and solve this just like we've solved the other ones, okay? So let's give it a go. 2 multiplied by 5 is 10, so 0 goes underneath and 1 gets carried over. 2 times 2 is 4, add the one that we carried over is 5, and then 2 times 1 is 2. Before I multiply my tens, so my 10 in the tens digit, I'm going to put a placeholder right here in the ones column. Now 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, and finally, let's combine the numbers. So 0 plus 0 is 0, 5 plus 5 is 10, carry the 1 over, 2 plus 2 is 4, add the one that we carried over is 5, and then 1 plus nothing is 1. 1,500 is the answer, okay? Now it's your turn. So what I'd like you to do is take a look at the questions that are on the screen now, and when you're ready, I'll give you a countdown, but when you're ready, we're going to pause the video, have a go at answering those questions, okay? And then when you think you've got the answers, do press play and I'll go through the solutions. And please don't worry if you have gone wrong. The most important thing that can happen throughout this video is you learn something. So if you don't quite get them right, but you understand the explanation afterwards, then that's the purpose of the video. So do not worry, okay? So I'm going to count down from 3. Once I do that, pause the video, have a go and press play when you're done. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, if you're listening to me speak now, it means you've had a go at the questions, so let's go through the solutions. All right, so the first question was 324 multiplied by 26. Okay, let me see if I can answer directly onto this question card. So I don't know if I've got enough room, but I'll try. Otherwise, I will write it out again. Okay, 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. So 4 goes underneath and 2 gets carried over. 6 multiplied by 2 is 12. Add the 2 that we carried over is 14. So 4 goes underneath and 1 gets carried over. 6 multiplied by 3 is 18. Add the 1 that we carried over is 19. So 9 gets carried over. 9 goes underneath. 1 gets carried over. And that 1 that we carried over, there's no more maths to do. We multiplied 6 by 324. So we're just going to bring it straight down into that column. Now, before we multiply the 2 tens in this question, we're going to put our placeholder here. So 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, so I've answered the question. I now need to combine the 2 answers. Okay, let's add them together. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 plus 8 is 12. So 2 goes underneath, 1 gets carried over. 9 plus 4 is 13. Add the 1 that I carried over is 14. So 4 goes underneath, carry the 1 over. And the 6 plus 1 is 7. Add the 1 that I carried over is 8. So I've got the answer 8,424. I'm going to check my calculator to make sure it's correct. And if it's not, we can have a look to see where it's gone wrong. So 324 multiplied by 26, 8,424 is the correct answer. So I know it's fine and all my working out is done properly. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. So the next question says 542 multiplied by 32. So once again, we'll start off by multiplying the 1s. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. 1 gets carried over, bring it straight down. Add the placeholder down here. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 goes underneath, 1 gets carried over. 3 times 5 is 15. Add the 1 that I carried over is 16. So 6 goes underneath, 1 gets carried over. We've done all the maths, it can go straight down. And combine them. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 6 is 14. Carry the 1 over. 0 plus 2 is 2. Add the 1 that I carried over is 3. 1 plus 6 is 7. 1 plus nothing is 1. Let's put it in my calculator. 542 multiplied by 32 is 17,344. I'm not sure if you can see that clearly, but the answer is correct. So I know that the working out is fine. Okay, so we have got one more question to go through, which is our word problem. A school ordered 428 new laptops. Each laptop costs £37, which is a pretty reasonable price for a laptop. How much did the school spend in total? Okay, so what is this question asking us to do? Well, we know that one laptop costs £37 because the question told us that. But we've bought 428 laptops. So we've spent 428 lots of £37. And remember from the previous video, lots of is a synonym for multiplication, okay? So we've got 428 and we need to multiply that by 37. Okay, 7 times 8 is 56. So the 6 goes underneath and the 5 gets carried over. 7 times 2 is 14. Add the 5 that we carried over is 19. So 9 goes underneath and 1 gets carried over. 7 times 4 is 28. Add the 1 that I carried over is 29. So 9 gets underneath. 2 gets carried over. We've done all the maths at the top there. So 2 is brought down. Then we add a placeholder. 3 multiplied by 8 is 24. So 4 goes underneath. 2 gets carried over. 3 times 2 is 6. Add the 2 that we carried over is 8. And 3 times 4 is 12. So 2 goes underneath. 1 gets carried over. We've done all the maths. Let's bring the 1 down. And we're going to combine. 6 plus 0 is 6. 9 plus 4 is 13. So 3 goes underneath. 1 gets carried over. 9 plus 8 plus 1. So 9 plus 8 is 17. Add the 1 is 18. So 8 goes underneath. Carry the 1 over. 2 plus 2 is 4. Add the 1 is 5. And then 1 plus nothing is 1. Let me check my calculator. So 428 multiplied by 37, 15,836. And I do realise that I'm pretty sure that the calculator is displaying the number backwards. I do apologise for that. But as long as you can see your calculator, as long as you're checking and working out, that's really what matters, okay? So that's the end of this video. Now, before we do conclude it, just a couple of things. If you are finding this tough because you find it tricky to multiply, so for example, let's go back to the beginning of this question, right? Let's say that the reason that you find this question tough is because when it comes to doing 7 times 8, you struggle with that. Maybe you're not confident with your 7 times tables. Then we can do 8 times 7, can't we? Or 7 times 8 if you prefer the 7 times tables. So you can count in your 7s 8 times, or you can count in your 8 times tables 7 times. Now, if you find both of them tough, this is exactly why we need to make sure that we're practicing our times tables. Now, I'll be really, really honest with you. You do need to have a solid understanding of your times tables. And if you feel like it's something you need to work on, something you need to practice, do not worry about that. It's definitely something you can practice. And a few minutes practice every day, just for a couple of weeks, and you'll be a master of times tables. So do make sure that if that's the reason that you find it is tough, practice your times tables. The other thing I'd like to talk about is if you think that this is tricky because, and I'm quite guilty of this as well, if you think it's tricky because the working out gets a bit messy, so for example, when you're writing the answers and you're carrying the numbers, it all starts to look a bit messy and you're getting confused. That's very normal for a question type like this. My advice would be that when you start doing this, make sure you give yourself lots of space, okay? So for example, I'm very used to this, okay? So for me, working it out is quite straightforward. So I know where the numbers go and I don't get too confused with this. But if you're quite new to this, what I would do is when you're setting this question out, perhaps put lots of space between the numbers. So 428 multiplied by 37. If you give yourself this room to work your question out, then it becomes less cramped and a lot easier to see what's going on, okay? Thank you very much for watching, and remember to watch again, rewind, keep practicing until you're the master of long multiplication.